All right, hey everybody, thanks for tuning in for my Friday stream. Usually I do a hack and play where I work on a few different projects, but today I'll be doing some work on simplytest.me. I usually do simplytest streams on Sunday mornings, but with summer coming around, it's been extremely busy, so I haven't. So I want to take this time to work on simplytest.me a bit because it's been about a month and we're really close to launching, and I want to get back to hammering on this. So I'm even getting my environment up to date because I was a little bit behind. So I've got Composer updating a few things right now. It's taking a little bit longer because I have to use it inside of DDEV because I have PHP 8 on my local host and we're still using 7.4 for simplytest.me right now. So I'm going to take that time to kind of get into the issue queue to review a few things because, like I said, it's been a while. Last I was trying to refactor some of the JavaScript and went down a rabbit hole and things didn't work out too well. And of course, there's just going to be tons of little bugs. Fix failing PHP unit tests. I want to get that finally fixed. Deleting a project name from the search doesn't clear out the form. This looks like there hasn't been a lot of new issues actually added to it. Fix random crashes when importing projects. So this is what I was last working on, is this refactor of the React application, and that's what went down the rabbit hole, and I think that's where I'm going to pick back up, but with a new branch, because it just started to get a little too wild, and I definitely want to fix these failing PHP unit tests. So I need to re-upload my brain and see where I left off. We got 4 changes left, but I'm pretty sure that this was breaking a lot of things. Or maybe not. Maybe I didn't commit the broken problems. Maybe I just spun out. So I'll try to just take this merge request and keep going there to refactor the application. So let's rename it refactor React application to create component files for all components. Let's descope this a bit to be more about organization and less with the context. Last time I tried that, things got wild and out of hand. Yeah, in the last live stream I was doing it and it just did not go very well. Like, it started adding more bugs to this context and having to deal with this this drop down autocomplete that we have. So I'll try to just start slow and simple and work my way back up. Need to wait for this to finish synchronizing, which is going to take forever inside of Docker. So I'll give it just another few seconds and see. I know somebody created a handful of issues in a spreadsheet, but they didn't turn them into issues. So I can't really work on those. I'm going to open Drupal Slack in another browser window and see. I'm going to do that off screen because I do have some private messages. All right. So it's at 98%. Okay, there we go. Looks like it's going to be going soon. Get Slack to open the right channel. We can find Simply Test Me. So if you are curious and you do want to join in, there is the Simply Test Me channel. All right. So they posted this issue. Made it improvement in bug reports, and they did not. It also has. So they did not create issues for all this. So let's try to organize. Rated issue. So let's make this a plan. My computer is, I hate running Composer install inside of a Docker image because it just is absurdly slow, especially when it has to do Git operations. So we're gonna call this a plan, and let's see if we have new UI. I don't think we have like a let's call it new UI there. Change it to a plan. Come on. Well, I know one thing we can do is I can start working on fixing the failing PHP unit tests. If we go to the Simply Test Me website repo, that's where we actually run the test because Drupal.org doesn't run profile tests for us. So we rely on GitHub to do it. So it's a delay. It sucks because it means that we'll end up committing something that has broken code. But there's not much we can do to work around that right now. So if we look at the failure, there is one that we go to core version manager test. I wrote this test kind of silly because anytime that there's a new core release, it breaks. So if we look at line data set 72, failed asserting that size 92 matches expected size 90. So what we should do, instead of having to constantly update this every time that we get a core release, here's the test, expected count. Still wanting to process. So instead of assert count, it should be like assert true that the results are greater than or equal to expected count is probably the easiest way we can fix it, like a minimum. And I don't know if there's an assert minimum in there. I will once this finishes installing. You know what? This is taking too long. So I'm going to just do it locally on the machine. If I can get it to close out. Closing the terminal will do it. So brew. So if you use a Mac or just use, even if you use Homebrew on Mac or Linux, you can do brew unlink PHP and then brew link force PHP 7.4. And this will let us force link. So now it removed PHP 8 for myself. Now I need to go in though and update my interpreter for PHP brew to realize that it's 7.4. Do install. If I do PHP version, great. Now I can do a composer install and it'll be a lot faster. Let's see what this bug report is. PHP Toolbox probably freaks out when you change the versions. All right, so we'll wait for that to go. And finish the indexing. All right, looks like we're ready. Oh, it's doing it. npm install on the theme. I really hate npm install because it modifies the .lock file. And if you do npm ci, it deletes the node.modules, but reinstalls off of the lock file in a pure fashion. I really don't like npm for package management, and I really prefer Yarn, but this project has npm set up. View external files. Sure, we'll add that. Update dependencies. No. All right, so once this is done indexing, we can run the test here, which maybe I can already do it by pressing this button. And I want to check. I'm not a maintainer, so I probably can't do this. But I know they started to make it so you could run GitHub or GitLab CI on some of these projects, but you have to be a you have to be the maintainer, which I am not. All right, so that's running. Okay, that was skipped. So this is the thing that was failing us, and hopefully it works. I want the indexing to finish so I can see if there's a more appropriate assertion, like assert greater than, but this is probably just as good with assert true. And then we can have filled asserting that size 47 matches 43. Expected to release sample data 39. Is this actually getting it all? Expected result sample. So let's change this to also be, or wait, test core versions. Sorry, test core versions. Kernel test. Oh, kernel controller test inside of simply test projects. There we go. Test core versions. What do we have? We have 9, 33. We can do, all right, we're in, let's look at assert. Assert equals, not equals, greater than or equal. Awesome. We can do that. So assert that, assert greater than or equal. So it should be greater than or equal to 33. Let's go ahead and fix this other test. And we can flip these around. And that should fix it. Test release data. Let's see. Core version manager test. Test release data. Test pre-flight. Test release data with this core version data. This one I think is fine to manually update because we don't have new minor releases out very often. And that's exactly what happened here is we received there's a 3.x release, so that failed. So let's rerun the failures and we'll get these tests back up to speed then. So again, it's a bummer because we cannot run these tests on Drupal.org. Drupal.org historically has never run tests for distributions. We rely on running them on GitHub for the website repository. So whenever we update the profile, we would know like, hey, the tests fail. So that's, I need to review those pull requests too. So that's the bummer where we're like always behind a little bit. What is this saying? The controller test. Data list 1. Sure, 9.2. Oh, that's going to be, that's forever going to always be changing. So, yeah, so every time we get a release, that's going to change. So I'm just going to drop that because there's no point. It's just going to always change. And let's assert that 90 actual size 92 expected matches size of 90. Assert count. So we're going to do assert greater than or equal to 90. And we're going to do that for all of these. Actually, 10 should be 0 because there's no Drupal 10 release. And all these tests were written a while ago to map our local cache of Drupal core releases that we have to run against. So run that once more. And what I need to do is I need to add this as an issue fork. So that's my right directory. Add the issue fork, copying these commands. Just like if you fork on GitHub, behind the scenes in Drupal.org, we have GitLab and we create forks for each issue. So every issue has its own fork, which means it can have its own branches to be worked on. And then I'm going to copy these commands to check out the branch. And when they're all green, so now I'll do it from the command line. So I'm going to do a git status. I'm going to do git add modules. See, this is so silly. I did npm install and it modified the .lock file, which irritates me to no end. So if I do status again, v fix failing tests to be more relative on version counts, do a push. So now we'll be able to have our PHP unit test be reliable and not error out. Open the merge request. Let's just check it out. I'm going to open Drupal Slack in another tab, just in case I need to ping anybody something. The changes. Boom. All right. So let's put this to needs review so that way it can get reviewed and hopefully merged in. And I need to update my issue credits. So let's see 1 second. So I want to make sure I'm attributing my company because I am using my time. Well, I'm not, I'm using my business time to work on this. I'm making sure I get contribution credits, which is a Drupal style thing, where when you work on things, you can attribute who's been working on it, which is pretty neat. All right, so now I'm going to go work on refactoring the front end script again. And to do that, I want to first get Cypress open. So we have functional testing through Cypress with JavaScript. Just found it to be a lot easier than using Drupal's Nightwatch or functional JavaScript. I tried to use Nightwatch.js from Drupal, or Nightwatch.js is a JavaScript testing framework. That is what Drupal uses for its JavaScript testing. But I had issues that I couldn't sort out. So I just went for Cypress, which I've actually come to like a lot, and I think will be really useful for most people. But one thing I want to check on, let's see, so additional projects. One of these reinstalls the site, and I want to avoid that. I don't want to do a full site reinstall on some of these. In automated tests, I do here, not so much. So let's just go through the project autocomplete. Oh, yeah, I'll bring the test runner over. It's running the page. All right, so it did that. that was all. It didn't actually go through the UI, so let's go through the launch form and verify that the form launch is still working right. So we can go to the website, get password policy. So that hung up. We got stuck on password. We need to find a new drop-down library. Downshift just is not cutting it as well as I would like it to. And it looks like some assumptions are broken because of new core versions. So we need to get that updated as well. So let's go through here. So the launch form spec, let's go look at that test. And go back to git checkout 8.4.x. And check out this branch again. So I already have this branch locally. So I wish there was an easy way just to, there we go. We'll copy the branch name here. And do stash on those changes, git checkout. So head by one commit, git show. Try to get through this giant blob. Actually, smarter way to do that is to go through the Git tab here. Branch all. We want to go to, let's see, we want repo head branch. We want paths. Here we go. Nope, simple test. Here we go. Refactor additional projects. So yeah, this started. I started making way too many changes, and I'm going to drop this commit. So if we do git log, if I do git status rather, we're now at the same as what I pushed last. So we'll take some time to git stash pop to fix up these tests. So if I do this autocomplete, no, was it the autocomplete? It was the launch form spec. So we're assuming that Drupal core will pre-populate to a default value, and it didn't. Where'd the testing one go? So if we look at the errors here, it's not broken up. So it should show the umami demo for 8.6 and 9 sites. Let's find that test. And what was the failure here? So it defaulted to 9.1.7 instead of 8.9. Or sorry. I assumed it would go to 9.1.7, but instead we got 9.2 beta 1. So maybe we need to have it just select. So we'll do a select. We'll do 9.2.0. So we'll change that to assert that the value's there. Like we're trying to just assert that Drupal 9. So we're going to select 9.2.0 to avoid any workarounds. We launched. All right, so then we're going through. We had the same thing here with the project modified Drupal core version. When I was working on this, we didn't have any Drupal core releases come out. And I think that's why we're getting the failures. Like here, this again is freaking out over password policy for some reason. No, it's it is. So let's go back to here. Should show the umami demo. Where did it fail? Select 9.2. Well, this is project version. It didn't select 8.1.8. Oh, it did. It's like it needs to wait a minute. Let's just rerun. I don't know why it keeps deleting. Like it types password policy, but then it always deletes policy, and this is a bug we've been having. And I think we just need to ditch downshift, but that's a lot to do. To have to rip that out. And this is broken too. Something's going on. All right, I'm going to close this out. We're just going to do some manual testing on this. First, let's do, if I open the npm package and do a build. Yeah, we'll do build. We need to get this upgraded to Laravel Mix 6, so it's a lot cleaner. There's a lot that has to be cleaned up. All right, so once that's going, let's just close Cypress. And refresh. So if we do password policy, see, I don't know why in the test, if it types password policy, it drops the policy part. I feel like part of it might be it's going too fast in the test, but oh well. So let's go and start cleaning things up. So in the previous streams, I brought up how this is just like a giant big blob of a mess. Because I just worked on it in one file and didn't really split things out. So that's exactly what's going to happen now. So start splitting things out into their own files. So that way we can create some utilities and just get a better scope of what's going on here. So let's go ahead and I'm going to start with this. So this Drupal core version selector, that's what gives us this list here. Really, it's a fetch with a callback to the JSON. So let's make a utilities folder. We're going to call it utils. Or actually, not even a folder. Let's just make a let's see. Let's call it utils.js. Screw it. So we're going to export function fetch with callback URL callback, and it's exactly this piece of code. Prefer export dot I don't do JavaScript often, so this is taking me a second to figure out what I'm doing wrong. So yeah, so we want to fetch the URL. Yes, I just got to do export fetch. Export. Why am I so unable to fit export default? Don't want to export default. I want to export Fetch with callback. Unexpected token. Why don't I know what I'm doing here? Hold on. JavaScript export function. I can't believe I'm not able to get this, but my brain is just not. Oh. Export function foo. Yeah, so that was right. Why is it not? Why is it so angry at me? Before default export. Probably be, probably because there's no other things being exported. That would be why. So I'm going to delete that line there, and let's call it fetch with callback. So now we've moved. So now we've been able to move one helper into another, into a an option. And let's just see if there's anything else doing a similar Ajax call like this is. So we could refactor that as well. So we have here, field set. I want to fix prettier really quick. I don't know where it is. I think I fixed it in that other commit that I dropped. So it's not in there. Just fix the entire file with ESLint. Let's change children. It's going to be React prop types children. What should the prop types be for this? I don't ever know. So this is where I think it is completely fine to always copy and paste. Oh, wait, there is the verbose or node. Try something like utilizing of type. Sure. We'll do that. I have a feeling that's going to be an issue throughout. So we have installation options. And I did put manual checkbox in here. I know I kept this together because they're pretty much the same. Installation options wraps these two other components that are only used here. So I think that's fine to keep these grouped together. The one-click demos. We have a do launch function. So I want to move. So whenever you have a function defined inside of a component and that component re-renders, it recreates the function. So one thing I would want to do is move this function out. Let's see if I can just copy and paste this out. But I don't know if I can because it sets the set processing. Let's just see if we can refactor this. So let's cut this out. And we'll define it here. So where do we have it? Do set demos. And we have it on this button press to do the launch. So set processing. What do we do with this processing? So if processing, the button's disabled or not. So why don't we pass this as a callback? Or better yet, let's take it out of this logic. We can just do it in the callback for the button. Like there's no need to have it be outside of there. So let's see where else this is airing. Let's fix this to be happy with what do you want to call it? The linter. So one problem is that this does handle callbacks for if there's an error. So maybe I should have that set processing in there. Yeah, we'll move it in there. We'll just keep it in here. Do launch, set processing, and pass that callback to here. To null. Types are not supported by this JavaScript version. We're not doing a type, we're just returning null if it's not processing. One thing we can do here too, this is a candidate for the fetch with callback. So we can replace this as fetch with callback, and the URL is set, or the callback is set demos. And this launches on mount. So let's rebuild this. I've made some changes. I want to rebuild it. I'm going to keep this package open, and I'll run watch. So use watch to see what's going on and do incremental builds. And I want to see if this still works. So what's going on? What is this doing? So processing. So this returns an SVG for an animation. It's processing, and we should return null otherwise inside the content. But something's not, okay, something's not right here. There we go. We were missing a parentheses. Curly braces aren't necessary there. Let's see. So log error. Make sure we pass the error there. So I have browser sync enabled. So browser sync is going to reload the page whenever we change the JavaScript, and it's actually doing a proxy to this website. So we're getting the one-click demos. If I click Umami demo, we can see that it's loading the progress. One thing I noticed is that when progress is happening, we've got the spinner, and that looks cool. But on hover text white, hover this. If it's processing, I feel like we need to have the background in check. And this is probably going to be breaking since we're not over HTTPS. Oh, there's just no logs yet for it. Let's refresh it and see. Well, it's building, but Tugboat's not returning any builds. So that seems to be working just fine with that bit of a refactor. To move into this fetch callback, the set processing. I wish there was an easier way to have dynamic classes. Like we could do class name and then having just conditional. So React, class name, and conditional classes. Let's see. I don't, because we can do this, but I don't like that. And I don't want to do the class name library. So I guess we are stuck having to do the ternary operator. So let's wrap the value with this and turn it into a template string. And if processing is equal to demo.id, we want these classes to be applied, else nothing. Let's see. That fix it? No. There we go. Nope. What did I really broke this? How did I break this so bad? Let me back up. I'm going to copy this out. Oh, somehow I highlighted a bunch of things. There. So this should rebuild. So reload the browser. Let's just open it in a new tab. So if I click Umami demo, great. It stays highlighted. Perfect. That's the main thing I wanted. The context carried over between the two sites. Localhost. Okay. So I like that. We clean up the one-click demo a little bit. We'll leave these warnings. Yeah, we don't want, there's not a, we can't do the full callback because we actually need to check the response to make sure it was okay. So we'll leave this one-click demos as is. The patches, patches.slice. Patches.slice is missing props validation. The slice method extracts. I'm not even going to go through that. Patches.map is missing props validation. Okay, so basically it's that patches might not be an array. And that's because we need to define the prop types like we did in field set. Field set. So let's go ahead and we'll define the prop types for patches. So we do import prop types from prop types. We've got patches.prop types equals patches is a prop types.array required. Why has this got an error on us? Prop type array is forbidden. What? Is it because they want you to have something more restrict? Is an array of, okay. Array of prop types dot string is required. So that should be okay then. And set patches is a function. Prop types dot func is required. So now we've added the prop types there. Let's just fix the entire file with prettier. And we'll move on. Or see if there's any way that this can be improved. Remove extra patch, which has a typo. It should be just patch. And this needs to live in the function because we're using the set patches function that's passed into it. So that's okay. The project autocomplete, this is our giant mess that needs to get fixed. And hopefully we could drop, I want to drop shift because it doesn't seem to be working very well for our needs. This fetch project has like its own kind of callback. We'll just leave this as is. We'll go to project selection. This again is another mess that I kind of want to just leave it be. We'll fix with prettier. We'll just fix the entire file with prettier and move on. We've applied core constraint. Is not required but has no corresponding props. We'll just leave that. And then version selector. Let's clean this up. We'll fix the entire file. So project.short name if here. So we can do this as a, well, we can't quite move it to the callback because we use set versions with the .list. I'm just going to leave that and let's just go to the app, or let's just make sure this baseline page still works. I have Cypress for the testing, but the tests seem to be acting very finicky. So right here, we've got path auto. If I pick 8.1, we're at 888, and if I pick 8.1.8, we are at 9.2. So things seem to be working okay in the user interface here. So let's just keep spinning it out. And my hope is that all of this abstraction into components is going to make it easier for us to clean up the code because it's just kind of like bloated over time. So I'm going to start at the bottom of the file. This progress mount. So this mounts it. We have one entry point and it detects if you're on this page or the progress page and mounts the proper instance. Instance progress. Let's just move this build success message. So in components, I'm actually going to make one called progress page. And we'll move items into progress page. So we've got a build success message component. Let's just cut this out, paste it in here. We'll say, let's do import React from React and import prop types from prop types. Do build success message dot prop types equals that. URL is prop types dot string is required, and we'll export default that right there. We'll just fix in current file is prettier, and there we go. React JSX file name extension. I want to turn that off eventually. I don't think that really matters. So let's go to build success message, import. So we've got the success message. Let's do the error message as well. Do build error message.js. Just get this. It's tedious work. It's not the funnest, but it is. One of the reasons I like React is you can just take a single JavaScript file and go nuts with it. Same reason I liked PHP when I was first starting out, is you can just do work. You don't need to worry about what's the right way or wrong way. You can just get stuff done. And that's exactly the approach we have here, but now I'm trying to sit and clean that up. So you have logs. Logs is a prop types array of, it's an array of prop types dot shape, which shape requires a, don't remember. I think logs prop types will do message prop types dot string is required. I think that's right. What does it say? Prop type logs is not required. Build error message. Let's see where that's even used. We'll say it's required. We'll fix the current file. Logs is not required, but has no corresponding default props. Well, we can just do that. I guess what we can do is build error message as default props. Hey, there we go. And we'll export default build error message, which allows us to import it here. And that leaves the next thing to spin out is the instance progress, which is what we end up mounting. So let's call this the progress. We'll just call it instance progress to keep the names the same. Just go ahead of time to import React from React. I thought we didn't have to do this anymore, but apparently you still have to import React, at least with the version of React we have on this project. So what I'll do is I'm just going to do a cut and a paste, and immediately I'll do export default instance progress and do the import here. And this, like, the end goal is I want to have app.js just be our entry point that launches these two things. So I'm going to actually just fix these few lines right here. So that way this will be, no, don't fix the entire file. I don't want to fix the entire file before I get too far in. So my end goal is for app.js to just have these lines in it and get everything else plucked out. So we can just make refactoring a little bit easier as we go. We have no props. We need to import use effect and use state. And I want to review some of these. So we have state, progress, 0, preview, and logs. Const state URL. Sure. Oh. So prefer destructuring instead. So the destructuring is we can go like this. And that will pull out the value from Drupal settings. Inside Drupal settings is something that's added to the DOM. So the DOM will drop in the state URL from Tugboat, and that's how we know how to go fetch that. So set interval. So await fetch. I wonder if we, so use effect. So this is a side effect that runs on mount. And it has to set the state. So set error true, clear interval. So if we ever get a 404, if we've hit a preview, we clear the interval. And if the JSON.URL, if there's a URL and the state is ready, we go to that URL. This is what redirects us to the instance when it's launched. And I'm just going to bump it to 3 seconds for the input. We got that there. Progress title. So this is our, okay, that's our side effect. That's about as good as it can get. If we have an error, we return the error in the message and say, go back and try again. Progress title, we're building your instance. If the state is an error, we need to test a successful build. Yeah, that's going to be near impossible. And we have the state. So for each, if the state is failed, we build the error message. If it's ready, we show the URL. Otherwise, we just show all the logs. And we can test that out. I'm going to stop that. I'm going to stop the watch and do I'm going to do a full build. And we'll test out what I've done so far. That's the other thing to do, is make sure that if you're doing refactoring, you want to test often what you've refactored and make sure you haven't broken anything before it's too late, which is what happened to me last time. I was trying to go through this giant context we have, and it was just a big mess. I want to see too if I can get this gulp file to be removed so we can just use Laravel mix for everything. Right now, Laravel mix is being used for the JavaScript and a little bit of Tailwind. I'd like to just have Webpack manage the entire build process. So let's go to simply test dev, the local. We're going to pick, I'm going to do the full test. We're going to pick password policy. We're going to pick 3.0 beta 1. We're going to add password policy pwned. We're going to pick the beta 2. And we're going to do it on the Umami demo. And I'm going to open my dev tools just to see. We had 2 errors that came up. Unexpected error, password policy. That might mean something, but maybe it's all okay. I'm going to click launch. So building your instance. Now, all right, good. So we are getting logs. So every 3 seconds, it's going to go and get those logs. I thought we fixed this padding. So it should be. All right, there we go. It is pulling in the logs. I want to get an actual terminal emulator in here to review this. But we did the refactoring and we're able to get all the logs out. So that's a win to me. We have this still building. When I get back, we should see that this refreshes. So thank you for the subscription. I appreciate that as always. Helps me, it gives me a little bit of money and helps me keep setting aside time for these contributions or working on these projects. All right, so that's going to keep building. Let's go back to some refactoring in app.js. Now I went for the bottom because I know that was some light items. Let's see what could go next. There's not too much left. We have no more side effects that need to be used in here. Remove those. Add additional projects, which is what we just went through. Advanced options, which uses additional projects and installation options, and this. All right, I have an idea. So right now I see that this advanced options has the patches and set patches from the context. If we look inside patches, it's not fetching it from context, which it could. Although, could not parse version constraint 8.3.x 0. What? Hold on. That's not supposed to happen. It's supposed to drop. All right, that's a bug. one second. I need to open an issue for that, so that way I can track it. Let's do, oh, sweet. Adam merged that for me. Using 2.x version of any module crashes. I'm not, okay. I wish, oh, we need this to dump the build config. Let's see if I do that. So if we go to console, we go to Drupal settings, instance ID, state URL, user ID. That's not what we want. The path. Right. Additional error when composer version constraint error when requiring additional project. Do bug report. It's for 8.4.x. Went to do the normal test of password policy. Drupal 9. With password policy pwned as a additional project. Selected Drupal 9 and Umami. Got the following error. So this is a problem in our build config. Let me scroll down. So yeah, there's something in the build config that doesn't make sense here. So stage download. It's supposed to make it a composer happy version, which composer drops the legacy, which Drupal's composer drops the legacy core prefix. So we'll save that, and I'm gonna actually take a screenshot. One of our problems before with SimplyTest is there was like cryptic errors, and I've had it guess the last few logs as being part of the error. So I'm hoping that this helps us a lot with error reports. So I'll quick upload this. I'll hit the embed button. And we'll save. All right. I want to try to fix that, but I'm not going to right now. Let's just keep moving forward with the React code. So I want to make patches. Just wait. I want to have patches just read from this launcher, but I realize that we can't because inside additional projects, we have the patches component reading from inside additional projects. So that I'm going to make a note. Note, we receive patches and set patches as props since this component is shared between the root project and any additional projects. Oh, why is this going to complain at me? It's not. All right, I need to put that note for myself because that's twice now I know I've tried to go refactor that without considering that it needs to remain that way. So we got the launcher that we could spin out. So I guess the next part is just additional projects, which is part of advanced options. So let's just we'll just do additional projects. A new file, additional projects. And I find this to be the easiest way to do refactoring a lot of times is just taking the quick way. Just take little things or take big things and put them into a file. Don't do a lot of changes. But once you can start to split things out, it's a lot easier to just get the context of what's all happening. Right now, it's nearly impossible to get a full context of what is happening in this project anymore. So we're going to export default additional projects. And we'll import that here. Let's import that from React. And we'll go ahead and fix the entire file. So it does use our context to find the selected version, the Drupal version, set the additional projects and additional projects in the system. Key K is a bad thing to use. So we'll replace it with project short name. You're not supposed to use the actual key from an array. So my understanding is with React's render system, there's the event loop, and its awareness of like its tree structure. So the key allows it to detect if that key is what changed or exists, and if it needs to re-render or not. On change project, and it's already declared in the upper scope. So let's say we'll call it changed project, or let's see, project selection. Yeah, we'll just call it changed project and changed version to keep it somewhat easier to understand what's happening. Which version is then changed version. So yeah, this checks if the project in that key has changed, or the version, it replaces it. We go through it, adds the patches. It allows you to add an additional project. So let's see, I want to just read through this. Add additional projects. So it sets the additional projects as the current array, uses the spread, and then so it copies in the original array and then adds a new item and sets that, and set additional button true. What is this used for? Additional button. Where does this get passed down to? To project selection, which uses this for some other state items. Additional button. It gets bubbled all the way down to know if it's a different project name. That's something I feel like we can find a way to fix over time. I tried to do that, and I just ended up breaking more than fixing anything more. So this is one of the more complex ones, one of the more complex components that I'd love to find a way to clean up, but I just don't have any good ideas right now. Especially this on change. There's additional projects. Okay, so set additional projects. Yeah, so it updates. So the idea is that it updates itself. And whenever you work with an array, you always have to create a copy of it when manipulating the state. Otherwise, it does like absolute checking. So the memory reference will be the same. So it won't do anything. So by doing this bracket with the spread operator, we're creating a copy of the array and creating a new memory pointer. Probably the wrong word for it, but like a new memory address, whatever you will. And doing a strict equals check will return false because they're two different objects now. So that's why that's important there. And then we're updating so this unchanged means that like you selected a project name and rechanged it. On click, remove extra project for the key. Patches, I'm just going to leave this as is for now. I'm not even going to try to improve logic in here. What that means is we can now move the advanced options into its own area. So let's do advanced options.js. Import React from React. And I'm hoping that by fixing this, we can work on some of the accessibility issues more easily. Advanced options. So now that we've got the advanced options, we can import that here. Let's just fix the entire file with prettier. So there isn't too much that goes on in here. This just builds out the advanced options part of the form. Like when we're on this page and you select a project. So once you select a project, that's what the advanced options are right here. Which lets you select the Drupal core version, the patches, and the additional projects and the installation options here. One thing I was wondering is if the Drupal core selector should receive the data as props instead of from the launcher, but I don't think that would be beneficial. All right, so that's been copied over. The last step is to get the launcher into its own. So let's clean up these files. And let's just create the launcher. So file launcher.js. I'm going to make it its own folder. Launcher.js. I know not everything is in its own folder or area, but since these are like the root page components, I'm going to put them in their own. Why? No exact why, but I feel like it's going to make it easier to just recognize them as we go. So launcher, we're going to cut and paste, export default launcher, which means that we can now import it from here. We can still keep the launch provider. We don't need to have state anymore. And now this file looks more like your index.js and create React app or anything else. So we've got that. Oh, thanks. I'm glad that you enjoy it. I think there is some potential for it. It's hard coming up with ideas sometimes. But it has been my way to guarantee that I can contribute to open source. It's, I can try to set aside time as much as I want, but it can be hard to set aside the time. Or what if I solve a really cool problem? It's hard to share that. I can sit and try to write a blog, but then I write a blog in 3 months later or so. So I'm hoping this helps uncover some nuggets and just, again, one, maybe somebody else is like, oh, he screws up a lot like I do. And maybe that lowers somebody's imposter syndrome, or just helps somebody see like how they can contribute as well. So it's fun. I enjoy it a lot, and I'm glad that you enjoy it too. I think it could lead to some cool possibilities. All right, so we got the launcher. We'll fix the file. Use state. Let's import it. On submit. So when we submit the form, we do a fetch, and this is when we set all the errors in the page. Key, again, return error key. We'll just set the key to be the error itself, so that way it has a more specific error. And this just has the project selection, which the project selection is right here. It's the drop down and the version selector for the project, and then launch sandbox. which I had combined the drop down in the version selector into, because before they were standalone and I combined them into here, I think this version selector needs to be brought into this project selection itself. It's at a point where having all these nested components is almost making it too hard, especially since project autocomplete and version selector do not live on their own. Like they're used together at the same time. So let's give this a run through real quick. So we got the launcher mount. Let's go ahead and do another build. So I'll do a build, and then I'm going to try to open Cypress again and run through the test. And see core versions, import on install, launch form spec. So click project, password policy, or pick project. So I wrote a custom command called pick project. So evaluate Drupal projects type input, and it does a down arrow. What I feel like is happening is it's typing too fast. Like it types password policy, and then for some reason it wants to, oh shoot, I know why. Down arrow enter. On my local machine, I have the password project imported. So if I reinstall the Drupal site, I bet there'd be no problems going on. So let me go ahead and do ddev drush ULI. And then I can get my test to pass. And one thing I still need to figure out is getting Cypress to run on our GitHub instance. I haven't done that yet. Let's pop that over here. Now, simple test projects. Great. Apparently there's a, really? Drupal.org/project/p, not Panoply. There is a project with the short name of P for paragraph bundles. So if I were to delete the password project right now, the test would pass. I'm going to put a to do strengthen this. That's not how you spell strengthen this to make sure selected item matches input. So what we could do is .type, wait, type, assert the value, and then press down again if it doesn't match. Maybe, I'm not sure. But if I go and do Cypress open, the test should start passing again. Because we don't have the password project. Testing is hard, especially when you have functional testing is hard. When you have data that's difficult to be reinstalled. That's probably the hardest part, is the fact that we have a database that we have to work against. So let's do launch form. And fingers crossed that the test passed this time. Password policy passed. So that failed because it's not opening the advanced options by default anymore. Why? So in promise, okay, so we're having issues, core compatibility, path auto. So we have some kind of regression. Let's go back. So if I go, let's reopen the page. So it's trying to get the compatible core issues. So cannot read property is focusable, undefined. Why is that running? Breakpoints. Let's see. What's the call stack? Ref. Undefined. What called this? jQuery. What in the world? That doesn't make any sense. So is focusable is supposed to be coming from window.tabable. Window which does not exist. Why? Window.tabable. jQuery UI, tabable shim. All right, something's just weird there. Play over that. So whenever you select a project, it's supposed to take the project's version and then find the compatible core version. So if we type path auto, we can see here that we got the path auto versions, but calling the core compatible did not have the version. And I'm guessing I broke that. So let's go inside of our code. Selected project.short name, selected version. Selected version gets set up here. So this is being rendered and ready before we have the selected version. So selected project and selected version. So I'm going to try this. So if selected project, if not, or we'll just return null. I'm not sure if that's the right way to do it. So fetch with callback the release URL, returning the 404. But it eventually calls. Yeah, so it's like it calls once and then it calls again. So it's like it calls too early and something else triggers it. So let's try this. Handle when the selected project is resolved before the selected version. The selected version. So here we just get the first letter because if it's Drupal core, it's going to be 8 dot or 9 dot. So that's why we have that going on there. So let's do this selected version. Let's do a build. And I really think we can replace this gulp file with mix. But I'm going to try that a different day because that's a lot I have to try to deal with right now. And I have a habit of trying to do too many things at once. All right, let's see what goes on here. I'm going to drop this breakpoint. I'm going to hit play. So if we do path auto, no error, and the advanced options opened right away. So let's try rerunning the test. which is the launch form spec. And if this works, I'll be a lot happier to... Why? Oh, because I'm clicking the advanced options. And okay, so before what we did, if I go to advanced options, details, open patches.length is greater than 0. What? I think... All right. Well, I think I know why the test is failing. Because before we didn't always open the patches by default. Like if I go to Git, let's go to simply test. Since I move things around, it's going to be hard to find it. Let me look at the original Git blame. Nope, not modules. It's in the theme. I'd like to move it out of the theme as well because it doesn't need to be in the theme. Components, app. Nope, not even components. App.js. Let's do a blame, which is really just a whodunit. Start custom install via URL with parameters. Why? So if patches.length is greater than 0, auto open, but it's technically always 0. Let's make it 1. Because what happens is we always default to having a, let's see, patches 0. Where do we increment patches? So map patches here. Oh, right here on the mount, because we need to have an empty one in order to, we need to have an empty patch in order to have the empty input. So let's change that to is greater than 1 by default. Let's hit build. So you can actually start a project by passing URL query parameters to the page. And the idea was to auto open the advanced parameters if you had patches. So let's try with just a, one, with like greater than 1, and see if that improves, that fixes our tests. So I don't need that open anymore. So if I do path auto, all right, now we should be good to go. I'm going to reload. There. The problem was that the advanced options were always open automatically. So it was erroring on that. Should have 9.2.0. We don't, 9.2.0 isn't released yet. I thought it was. I am project. My local database might just be out of date as well. Yeah. So it's my local database. ddev drush. What's the command? Simply test. Oh, let's do 9. We're going to update Drupal 9. So that's going to refresh my local cache of core projects. So if I were to refresh this, actually I probably didn't even need to refresh, but I do path auto. And if I pick 8.x, 1.8, Now we have 9.2.0. Let me rerun these tests just to see if that fixes some of the false positives or false negatives. Project patch 0. Oh, I see what happened. I actually ended up breaking it a bit. 9.1.7. What was 0? Have value 9.2.0. Isn't that what that is? Drupal core version. Have value 9.2.0. That is 9.2.0. But I did find a bug here. We need it to be greater than or equal to 1, which is exactly what it was before. I can't get shoot. So this whole auto open based on patches is a kind of a bust. Set main project const search commands. If has patches. Let's try this out. I'm going to try. So what happens if I do? So we'll do that. We're going to check, instead of this open, we're going to do window.location.search.length is greater than 0. Let's do that. That will trigger it to be open, because as we added a patch, it caused it to automatically close. So that's a bad thing to do, to have it on that state. There was another thing that says 9.1.7. This will default to 9.2.0. Again, this is always going to, every time there's a core release though, this is going to change. So let's change it to, where else is 9.2.0? Oh, select have value. Yeah, it's just select value. There. So this just proves that a Drupal 9 version is available. I think that will make sense. It's refreshing it. Oh, I didn't rebuild it though. Let me do a build. This problem, I have the tests always restart when you modify the spec, but I didn't build the JavaScript, so it was still running on the old code. All right, so finished. Let's rerun the test, because if the code, if I can get the test to pass again, and all the React components were moved into their own files, and it's a little bit more cleaned up, I'll be happy. It's not perfect, but it's a step closer. And they did all pass. Awesome. Let's check this form prefill spec. So project version. All right. So let's see here. This didn't work. It should have selected 9.3.x, but it was 7.0. So let's see. what's going on in this wild select list. So 9.3.xdev, 9.3.xdev. It should have picked that. Let's look at the launcher based off of the search params. So if it has project and version, let's debug this. Let's see, I'm going to copy this URL and go to it in here. And we'll use the React Dev Tools to inspect our state. So network, Drupal core version 7. Why did it launch 7? Profiler. Oh, this is a production build. So state, short name 7.7. Why did everything pick core 7? I think part of it is this whole set main project. Like it sets the selected version or the selected project and the selected version. Yeah, so that was one bug. So I wonder if that's the problem, is where so value, yeah, it's setting the version to be 7.0. So set selected project, use effect, selected project. I feel like this is causing bugs. Remember I added things, and so right here when the selected project changes, it resets the Drupal version and the selected project, which clears out, try to fix one bug, but I think that's what's causing our problem right now. So I'm going to do a build and we'll see what happens. Because I think that's just shooting myself in the foot. It's like, what did I do here? So launcher, yeah, that's a problem, I believe. This sets can launch there. Let's refresh the page. Okay, that fixed the test, or it should fix the test. Let's go back. Let's rerun it. All right, I'm happy with that. Additional project spec. Let's try that out. Awesome, it worked. It verified that we could add the additional project. Cool. I'm going to commit this. I'm going to stop Cypress. We did the build. Just fix this with prettier quick. Just these few. No, I don't want to fix the entire file. I just want to fix these few lines. All right, let's commit. That's in the website root. Git status. Git add themes. So it's all in the theme folder. and Cypress. We want to add, shoot, no, not entirely. I don't want to commit that. And launch form spec, that's fine. The autocomplete, I do want that to normally do an install. Status, git add Cypress. So that install command, I need to turn this into I want to build a Cypress plugin, but you call install Drupal, and it calls this simply test install command, and that's set up in nope, not Cypress.json. Oh, env. So we have the env, and you set the install command to be ddev drush si. If it's in the CI, it would go here. I want to actually just make this be like a drush Cypress package to run everything. So let's do git commit. Move all components to their own files and fix tests. Three, two, one. Oh, just git push. And close this out. I'm going to call it after this now. Let's refresh. There we go. It says I made the commit. Put it unassigned. And I'm going to say needs review. And save. All right. So I feel like the JavaScript code is cleaned up a bit and is more workable, which was, I think, a barrier to entry for anybody who wants to try to contribute, because you look at it and it's just like a giant mess. We have a bunch of other stuff that really needs to be cleaned out of these files too. There's just gunk all over from just various porting efforts, but we'll get there. We are there, just taking a little bit more time. So thanks for tuning in. Enjoy your Friday if you're US based. I hope you get to enjoy a 3-day weekend, because July 4th is on Sunday. So take Monday off if you're able to. Relax. I know I'm going to, quote unquote, try to. So thanks, and have a good one, everybody.